I had Rex from the Sports Card Shop on the show a couple years ago, shortly after he opened his store up in New Buffalo, Michigan. Well, over these last couple of years, some things have changed with Rex in the Sports Card Shop, so I wanted to bring him back on to catch us up on what's been going on. Rex, welcome.
Thank you, Mike. Always a pleasure to be here.
When we last talked, you had mentioned how when you opened up the shop, you had segmented off a portion of retail space of your existing flooring business to dedicate to sports cards. Well, since then, that retail space has continued to evolve. Tell me a little bit about what your footprint looks like today.
So, in New Buffalo, our current footprint now is at just under 1,700 square feet, and there's three different sections. The section that we first opened was probably maybe a fifth of that total space, and then with our first expansion, we pretty much doubled that, and then our last expansion, which probably was right about a year ago now. We went into the rest of that space and really took uh, the entire unit for the sports card shop. So it's evolved from around I'd say 500 square feet to what it is now, and it's just a gathering place for collectors. It's a great place to not only just come and buy, sell, trade cards and memorabilia, but it's a great hangout too. We now have the ability to host special events like athlete signings and birthday parties, rip parties, trade nights, things like that can all happen here now because of the size of the space.
So when you took over the additional square footage and you were adding that to the footprint of the card shop, were you doing that with intentionality as far as what you were planning to use that space for, or were you just were you just going into it knowing that you needed more space to be able to sell more cards? Kind of talk to me a little bit about why you decided to take on that space when you did.
So the first expansion was largely because we wanted to offer sports memorabilia. So we that was one of in fact it was our very first strategic partnership. We partnered with Rick Edgerly from Father and Son Sports Memorabilia, and we'll talk more about that down the line here when we start to talk about our partnerships. But that was our first partnership, so we wanted more space for memorabilia, which takes up a lot more space than cards typically. So that was the reason for the first expansion. The reason for the second expansion was because we really wanted to be, we really wanted to offer the collector community something other than just a transactional place to come in and, again, buy, sell, or trade. We wanted to have events. We wanted to be able to have athletes here to sign and autographs and meet their fans. We wanted to be able to have birthday parties for kids to come in and rip packs, play games. I mean, we have in the collector's cave back there, there's a pool table, there's a ping pong table, there's some classic arcade games. So it's a great place for kids to just kind of hang out and enjoy the hobby and play some games and that sort of thing. So that was really the impetus for those two expansions.
A couple years ago, we went on our summer vacation and spent a week up in your area. I had a chance to come into the shop and see what was going on at the time. At that time, you pretty much were primarily focused on wax, singles, and a little bit of memorabilia at that time. You talked about that first square footage expansion, opening up the opportunity to sell more memorabilia. Talk to me a little bit about the evolution of the products that you carry in shop.
Right. So when we first opened, we were set up with a distributor, to get wax, but our allocations weren't that big. We very early on were able to get a direct account with Panini, so that certainly bolstered our allocations of Panini product. Uh, we're able to do the same with Tops shortly after, and then also Upper Deck. So we're buying direct now from all three manufacturers. So wax is certainly a huge part of what we do. Um, Singles have expanded greatly as well, though. So we're always buying singles or trading for singles, and certainly love the opportunity to buy collections or buy in bulk, and then work that through and get that out to customers, and so they can enjoy the cards, the single cards as well. Because it's really, in some cases, it's a much different customer. The single customer is not always the same person who's ripping packs and boxes. And we like to offer that for both on the card side. We also started carrying Pokemon cards, not single cards, not yet anyway for Pokemon, but we do have the boxes and packs of Pokemon cards. That is really popular with kids here in the area, and being in a tourist area, um, that becomes a prominent seller during the summertime. But there's no shortage of adults who collect Pokemon as well. On the memorabilia side, it's really just Rick has really expanded that to offer, everything from hockey pucks and baseballs to jerseys, helmets, bats, you name it. We've got it. Specialty focus here in this area um, is unique because we're in Michigan, but we're actually closest to major city closest is really Chicago. So Chicago sports, Cubs, White Sox, Bears, Bulls, and then there's some spillover in the pro with Detroit, the Detroit market. But the college market for memorabilia is perhaps the healthiest one here with Michigan and Michigan State and Notre Dame. Notre Dame actually being the closest to our location here.
At one point, didn't I see you were also starting to offer like Hot Wheels toys and some things like that?
Correct. So yeah, Hot Wheels. We also have that. We have a little section that's Max and Owen's one of their pet projects, Hot Wheels. So yeah, this gets a nice little add-on sale. We're not buying new Hot Wheels, so you're not necessarily coming in here seeing the same stuff that you're finding at the big box stores. We're buying the stuff that's been out for a while. Some of the chase cars and things like that. That's really what we're offering here.
You had touched on this earlier, but another thing that I was hoping to cover a little bit is one of the focuses that you've had since you've been open is using strategic partners. And
Right.
you've advertised on a variety of podcasts, including this one. You've used Ivan Lovegren, Watch the Breaks that many people know within the hobby, and a few others. Tell me a little bit about your thought process when utilizing kind of a strategic partner strategy to grow the sports card shop.
Right. So, as you mentioned, or Ivan was one of our first strategic partners as well in the social media world. Um, we really, I guess I should really probably preface all this by saying that we've really been aggressive with these strategic partnerships recently out of necessity. We recently signed a lease for our second shop in Valparaiso, Indiana. So that is coming very soon. Going a little slower than we'd hoped in terms of the opening process, but we'll get there. And one of the reasons why we embarked on these strategic partnerships is because of um, the need for additional staffing. So we have, Tina and I, of course, are very active in the shop, as are Max and Owen when they're not in school or, playing baseball, basketball, football, golf, whatever sport they're in. They're also very active in the shop. But with the second shop, we need more people. And we've always been challenged in the retail world and whatever retail business we've been in with finding people who will be good caretakers of our businesses, just like we would be. So there are early success with Ivan as a strategic partner on social media, and Rick as a memorabilia partner kind of led us to expand this to get the help we need in the additional shops. So we've partnered with three other hobby entrepreneurs that will give us the help we need to staff the shops in return for us helping them grow their businesses. So in a way, the shops here in New Buffalo and Valparaiso will operate as incubators, I guess. Maybe you could say that. There's a term from the from the 90s that I haven't used in a while, as incubators for these hobby entrepreneurs to help grow their businesses. And in return, they help us. And, we can get into the details of who they are a little bit later if you want to. I can kind of introduce you to who they are.
But they're local folks, local to the area.
Correct. The Ivan is the only one who's not local, so he's in Nebraska. But yeah, his partnership is pretty unique in that, I won't steal his thunder. In fact, he was on your show not that long ago talking about his being a community lead for ISO Commerce. So I would encourage all your listeners, if you didn't get a chance to listen to that one and check out ISO Commerce as a great selling platform. But what we do there with Ivan is, the goal with him is to offer his followers some deals that they wouldn't normally get, because he kind of reward his followers for being followers. And then in turn, he obviously promotes what we do across his social channels. He uses the power of his audience to really help promote our business.
That brings up something else that I wanted to touch on is, when we last talked, you were kind of focused on making sure people understand that you were open for business to anyone really across the country, right? You weren't just,
Right.
even though you were an LCS, you were willing and wanting to service collectors all across the country. You wanted to have that online nationwide presence. But when it came to that online presence, you weren't really using eBay or other online marketplaces to get that reach. You were getting a lot of people reaching out directly via email or the phone to place some orders. Um, how has that strategy changed over these last couple of years? Is it pretty much the same as it was, or has it evolved along with the rest of the sports card shop?
Yeah, it has evolved because we are more active on eBay now with the singles in particular. Uh, we, they're the issues with eBay, for us are, obviously the cost of doing business. Now, um, I won't go as far as to say that it's not that it's cost prohibitive, but it can be costly. We have an eBay store, of course, and we are a top rated seller. So, we get decent rates, but when you go back and look at, here's an example, Mike, of what I mean by cost. So when we look at the cost of selling on eBay, and we go back to the last I don't know, 120 days or so, we look at our eBay um, fees, just total fees, and then we add in the shipping of the cost. We're actually paying more in eBay fees and shipping across all of our selling platforms than we pay in rent at our new Valparaiso location. So if you kind of think about, reach, that was one of the reasons we talked about. We looked at the finances of, opening a second shop here in the region. We understood that there was a need in Valparaiso, based on our research and based on our customer feedback in this area. Valparaiso is a thriving community. It is a very unique downtown environment. Um, if you haven't been down there, if you get a chance to check it out, it is really something to see. It's a very active retail and restaurant scene down there. They also have an ice rink, a nice central park where they host events, live music, movies, and during the summer. And there are no chain restaurants, no chain stores, no, no big boxes in the downtown area. All that stuff does exist in Valparaiso, but it's not downtown. So it's a really unique environment, and it's done by design, and it really fits very well with what we're all about. So we're excited to be going there. But again, getting back to the financial piece of it. So yeah, we sell on eBay, we sell on ISO, we do some stuff on MySlabs as well. But when you add all that stuff up, when you think about the cost of it, and you really look at the cost of it on paper, um, the cost of operating a shop, at least from a tenancy standpoint, is less than what we're paying now across those platforms.
Would you say it's fair to look at, though? You hear that argument a lot. You hear the conversation about the fees on some of these online platforms, but would it be fair to say that that really kind of only matters if you would be able to sell those same cards in the shop at that lower rate? Have you found though that selling on those other platforms allows for additional sales you wouldn't have otherwise been able to make if you weren't selling online?
Yeah, so if just from our one shop, I mean, that's the reason why we do sell online is because we obviously get the worldwide reach on some of these other platforms, and that's difficult to do. We also have our own website which we sell on, but that doesn't have the traffic that some of these other more established platforms do. So the eyeballs are certainly important. Um, but again, what we looked at, we're trying to really, our strategy in terms of growth is to continue to do that. But if we can also expand our reach, on a physical um, level by opening another shop, and again, one of our strategic partners um, runs a card show, a bi-monthly card show. His name is Ben Williams. Him and his wife run the South Bend Card Show that happens bi-monthly. They're partnering with us now too, and he is now our presence for the sports card shop at the shows that he runs, and he also sets up at shows around the region. So he is our presence there. Um, so if you look at our points of contact, where we'll be on social media, across the platforms that Ivan uses, and ISO, which is very connected to social media, that selling platform. We will continue to be on eBay. MySlabs will be at shows regionally pretty much every single weekend now, with Ben representing us and HB Cards. That's the name of his company. And then we'll have two physical locations, New Buffalo and Valparaiso, in the region as well. So a lot of different touch points, and that's really our process, and our goal is to grow that way.
You you've been very transparent about the sales results and kind of that customer breakdown of the shop. And many shops don't do that type of thing. Why did you feel it was important to share some of this information with the collecting community?
Because that's the reason why, is because I always get questions from different podcasters, different people in the community. They all want to know what is the pulse of the hobby, is a question that I hear a lot. Or where is the hobby now, or what inning is the hobby in, or how is the hobby doing, and sales are down, cards are crashing, it's way cards are way off their highs. I mean, all these buzzwords that I hear um, don't always match up with the reality of what's happening on the front lines, at least in our shop. So um, I always just like to give a dose of reality and let people know what's happening literally on the front lines, because nobody's really reporting it. I mean, even if you looked at the highest level. So if you look at Panini, Tops, Fanatics, nobody's really reporting those sales on a regular basis. And every shop in the country is, individually owned and operated. These are all small businesses. There are no, corporations, if you will. I mean, there are some people that are trying to go nationwide with their shops, and like Dan Fleischman and even Jimmy Mahan. They're kind of expanding nationally and even internationally. But for the most part, nobody is telling people how sales are on the front line. So that's the real reason. I've always been a numbers guy when it comes to retail too. Is we like to plan our sales based on historical results and compare our results to last year at this time. How did we do last month versus and then how do we do in the first quarter of this year versus last year. So I do that anyway, for our own purposes, and I just felt like it would be fun to share it.
One of the other things that I was curious about, when we talked last, you had shared that you had an extensive, and your wife also has had an extensive retail experience throughout your career. That's been a primary focus of both of your careers is retail, but you hadn't had an
Right.
extensive trading card or memorabilia retail experience. I always love to hear what people have learned, how they've grown over the times when they've had a specific effort or they were doing an initiative. So I would be curious to know, what are some things that you have learned about the trading card business over these last few years that you've been open?
Well, it is a much different retail business than any other that we've ever been in, and I'd venture to say um, there's no other retail concept like trading card shops. I mean, there just isn't. Number one, it's a two-way marketplace in most cases. I can't speak for every shop, but our shop is a two-way marketplace. Where we buy and sell. Um, so that's not necessarily unique. There are other companies that do that. What makes it unique though is that we do buy new product from direct from manufacturers at wholesale, and mark it up and sell it at at retail price. So there's that, but there is a large percentage of our customers that are looking to profit off of what they buy here in our shop, and that's possibly what makes it so unique. Because if you go into a well, let's take our other retail business from a flooring standpoint. For the most part, people aren't necessarily coming in to buy tile and profit from it. Now there are those situations that might exist. If it's a contractor, he may want to mark it up 10% to his customer and so forth and so on. But um, they're not looking to generally buy stuff and then resell it on a secondary market like people are in sports cards and memorabilia. There That's a lot of what we get here, and it certainly makes for some challenging environments sometimes. From a customer service standpoint, you'd like to really be able to make everyone happy, but that's not always possible in that type of selling environment.
Yeah, I think that is interesting. I know for my customers, that specific thing is one of the things that I love about being in the trading card business. Because, at least in my experience, I found that when I'm able to sell a card at a profit, even if I'm able to leave a little bit of meat on the bone for that customer, the profits that they're making from then reselling ultimately come back to me anyway, because they're able to
Mhm.
kind of continue that cycle of buying, selling, making a little extra to then come back and bring into the shop and continue to buy more. I'm not sure that it's quite the same as other industries where that person is the end consumer. They're going to either consume or use up the product that they're buying. With this trading
Right.
card world, where it's kind of a big cycle, and if you can keep that money flowing through, a lot of times the money that they're making isn't going to things outside the hobby all the time. It's staying within the hobby, and they're coming back and buying more in the future. That's one of the things that I like most about kind of being in that selling world.
It is, and and we encourage our customers to really make sure that if they're not just collecting it, we're always looking to buy cards, certain cards, of course. It's hard to really justify buying too much junk wax when we have so much of it already. Um, but yeah, we're always looking to buy collections, and if somebody's looking to sell some of the stuff that they don't necessarily want to hold on to in order to get into something else, we're happy to help them with that. Again, because oftentimes the money comes right back into to our shop. And if we give a store credit to somebody for their collection or for a handful of cards, more often than not, it comes back to us. So yeah, that's definitely a unique part of the two-way marketplace. The challenging part is sometimes when people are ripping wax, and they don't get an immediate ROI, and that could be difficult for some people, um, and that's frustrating for us as well, because we don't promote the selling of wax, um, trying to tout the fact that you're going to get an immediate ROI, because most times you're not. Um, the fact is, if you look at historically, I don't take let's take Patrick Mahomes for example. So when he was a rookie, when his rookie cards first came out, there weren't as many people chasing them certainly as there were after he won a Super Bowl. and now that he has two, it's a whole different story. Mike Trout, same thing. And in his rookie year, his cards were not as valuable, near as valuable as they became. So if you were ripping boxes at that time, and you got a Mike Trout or a Patrick Mahomes, you might have been, oh, okay, great, set it aside and not really thought about it. But then years down the road, you see what they can become. So that's the fun part of wax. And there are certain products that really drive that more. Bowman baseball, for example, is one. In the prospects, you can hold those cards for a couple of years and not really think about them, and then all of a sudden you've got something really valuable when a guy gets called up and does well. So that's what we want to make sure that people understand is we don't, especially for the kids. And what's exciting about you going back to the product mix, what's exciting about what we're doing now, really with the vendors and one distributor, is that we're offering lower price products here in the shop. What used to be called retail products, blaster boxes, hanger boxes, mega boxes, things like that, those formats are now being offered to us from both Topps and Panini, as well as one of our distributors. So we're able to bring that stuff in and be very competitive on the price of that stuff, so kids can get the experience of opening packs and boxes, without having to, venture into a couple $100 for a hobby box.
Well, hey, I really appreciate you spending a few minutes today. I know you're about ready to get the shop opened up here as we're chatting. Anything else that you want us to know about the sports card shop before we go today?
Not really. I mean, I would like to just emphasize the partnership model again. It's an experimental process for us, but we in addition to Rick and Ivan, I talked a little bit about Ben Williams from HB Cards. He's at the South Bend Card Show. We also have Scott Wilson as a partner from Top Choice Sports Cards. He's a firefighter, a captain in the LaPorte Fire Department, but when he's not doing that, you can find him over on YouTube, previewing new products as they come out. That's kind of his thing. He's not a breaker. I want to make sure to make that distinction. He doesn't, sell spots, and he just opens them, shows them, to the collector community, and then he also does some selling on eBay and other platforms. So those are our partners, and we're really excited because the goal is not just to get the help that we need, but it's also for us to help them grow their businesses and for them to help each other grow. So if you look at the model, for example, now we're to the point where Ben and Rick are in conversations about hosting and putting on another show in addition to the South Bend Card Show that happens bi-monthly. They want to do something bigger and bring autograph guests in. So that's a partnership that they are able to have and help each other grow as well. And that's what it's all about, is all of us, locally, and of course, bringing Ivan in because he promotes what we do on social as well. We're all helping each other, and that's the grand scheme.
Let people know where they can find the sports card shop.
So our new Buffalo location is at 18853 US Highway 12 in New Buffalo, Michigan. And coming soon to Valparaiso, Indiana, we'll be at 118 Lincoln Way. That's in the heart of downtown Valparaiso. And of course, you can always find us online, Twitter and Instagram @_ sports card shop. And our website is thesportscardshop.com.
Very cool. Thanks again, Rex.
Thanks, Mike.